Hey friends, welcome to Simplywell. This is Maria. I'm doing more of these videos because I like this format a lot. I'm a little short on time these days because I'm in the middle of selling my house and moving and, having little kids and stuff. It's like I don't always have time to write the blog posts that compile all my research, so sometimes I like to just sit here and riff a little bit. And today I want to riff and share a lot of research and insight that I've had recently, especially into copper and this issue of ceruloplasm. So basically, copper is relevant to those of us with histamine overload and migraines because copper is the essential mineral needed to create the diamine oxidase enzyme that then breaks down histamine. So it would make sense that if we're low in copper and we don't have the building blocks to make that enzyme, we won't be able to break the histamine down. And a lot of plant foods have copper in them, so in general, people are not regarded as being deficient in copper very often, even if you're vegan or vegetarian. Right here I have some beef liver, which is also high in copper. And I'm going to be talking today about organ meats and how they can help balance our minerals. But basically, copper is essential. However, it can be very damaging in unbound form. So in order for the body to use the copper, it has to bind the copper to a protein that's created in the liver called ceruloplasm. And this is what makes it usable by the body for all these many different enzymatic processes that are so important, including enzymes that play a big role in hormone regulation, which we know plays a big role in the migraine picture as well. So I want to talk today a little bit about why I'm choosing liver as my source of minerals, of zinc and copper. So zinc is really important for the body to produce progesterone, and copper is important for the body to produce estrogen. And both of these hormones are vitally important. I actually got interested in the mineral balance issue between zinc and copper when I was looking into the possibility of raising progesterone through zinc supplementation. And in that inquiry, I was able to discover that it's a lot more complex than that. You can't just supplement zinc to increase progesterone. I was interested in that because progesterone is a glutamate scavenger. It turns out estrogen is also, but a lot of women get their migraines right before their moon cycle, which is usually when progesterone is the lowest. And so the idea was that if we could just, increase progesterone a little bit, that might help with the migraines right before the menstrual cycle. But, since both estrogen and progesterone are glutamate scavengers, it seems like the issue there with the hormone imbalance might just be overall low levels of estrogen and progesterone, even in the case of estrogen dominance. So estrogen dominance, there could still be low levels of estrogen, but just an imbalance in the ratio of progesterone to estrogen, with there being more estrogen than desired in relation to the progesterone, but still having low levels of both. So, I mean, the key point is that if we really want to, find the most simple solution to well-being, it just goes back to having the building blocks in place that your body knows how to use to do all of these amazing, highly sophisticated and seemingly complex things that make our body function, and which, in lacking those things, lacking those minerals and vitamins and essential fatty acids, our body just does not have the materials to do what it knows how to do to keep us healthy. So, a lot of cultures you would prize the organ meats and would eat organ meats like as their supplement. And I was vegan like 2 years ago and decided that I was going to stop being vegan because I just kept reading about all the amazing properties of organ meats. But, I mean, look at that. It doesn't look appetizing. It's like this issue of organ meats, I think, is really difficult because we're the first generation that actually lost touch with our ancestors, seeing that as a normal thing to do. So, I guess maybe we're the second generation. So, I know my parents' generation, their parents, my grandparents, the boomers, they would eat liver and onions, and that was a normal thing probably well into the 50s. And we started favoring just the fleshy meats, chicken breast and these things these forms of meat, which I don't see why it's any worse eating an organ than eating the flesh of an animal. But of course it's been normalized and the flavor is different. So the flavor of liver, if you've not grown up eating it, it's very minerally. I think that's it also has a strong umami flavor. There's a lot of B vitamins in there. So the liver is the organ that does so many different processes, but one thing that it does is it stores the vitamins there for later use. That's why all of those vitamins and minerals accumulate in the liver, because the body stores it in the liver for when it may be needed later. And also, a lot of people don't want to eat liver because they think it's like a toxic organ, and that, you know, toxins accumulate and are stored in the liver. They're not stored in the liver. So the body does process toxins, or the liver does process toxins. The liver is the place where toxins are neutralized for excretion. But the body doesn't store toxins in the liver unless the animal is sick and not able to actually neutralize those toxins, right? There's no reason why the body physiologically would have any reason to want to store toxins. So the body has highly sophisticated ways of eliminating and neutralizing these toxins so that they're water soluble. And a lot of people with migraine, those pathways and those processes that are compromised. So I wouldn't want to eat the liver of, you know, an animal with migraines. Anyway, so even after I realized from my research that eating organ meats was probably like one of the best things I could do for my health, it took me probably 2 years before I actually got on board with actually doing it. And again, if you weren't raised with it, it's an odd flavor. It has a very strong mineral flavor. It's that copper and that zinc in there. However, if you were raised with it, that would be a totally normal flavor, right? So I decided to do this experiment. I gave my 1-year-old a little bite, and he absolutely loves the liver. No aversion to it whatsoever. Also, the other day I was making chicken soup, and my 1-year-old reached for the bone, for the drumstick, and he grabbed it, and he was chewing on it, and there was a bunch of collagen on there. I thought, well, I'll just, you know, that's what he wants, and if I tried to pull it away from him, and he threw a fit, so I'm like, whatever, I'll just let him hold on to that bone, and he started chewing off the top of it until you could actually see the marrow in it, and he was just relishing this marrow. All those minerals are in there, you know, so, you know, it's not that PC to be into liver, but at the end of the day, I think that probably our biggest aversion to eating these organ meats comes from the fact that it's just extremely intimate. It's somehow very intimate to be eating the major organs of an animal as compared to its flesh. And, you know, this would make sense from the perspective of Chinese medicine. In Chinese medicine, they say, you know, the different emotions are associated with different organs. So the liver is associated with anger and frustration, which those of us who have migraine have a lot of. We have a lot of liver congestion. We have a lot of anger and frustration. So I think that it's natural, especially given how animals are treated these days, to have some hesitation around eating an organ that is associated with an emotional state. You know, what about the emotions of that animal? How is that animal treated? It's just very, very intimate to be eating major organs of animals. So I went to New Seasons, which is a grocery store here, a natural grocery, and they have 100% grass-fed beef liver, and they pulled out this liver. I'm telling you, a beef liver, it's huge. It's like easily as big as my torso. I remember about 7 years ago when my husband and I were living in the Columbia River Gorge, and we were living on this biodiversity reserve, and there was a rancher who was leasing some of the land and having some of his cows graze on the open pasture there, and in exchange for the grazing rights, we butchered a cow, and it had been feasting on fresh pears that had fallen on the ground right before it got slaughtered. And so, you know, it was very happy up to the moment it died, and delicious meat, but we harvested it, and its heart was like this big. These are huge animals. So I'm actually generally in favor, personally, of the chicken liver. The chicken liver is milder than the beef liver. Also, different types of liver from different animals have different ratios of copper to zinc. So the beef and the lamb livers have higher levels of the copper than the chicken does. So chicken liver is a lot milder, and one thing I like that's appealing about the liver, if you are going to eat liver, is that chickens, you know, they're slaughtered pretty quickly. So, you know, a cow is usually about 1.5 years old before it gets slaughtered, and it may have been a milk cow prior to it being slaughtered for meat. So, whereas chicken are usually slaughtered after like 2 months. So, like, the issue of bioaccumulation may be less in an animal that's slaughtered at a younger age. And also because the chicken liver is a lot milder than the beef liver, I think that might be a good start for any of you who are wanting to venture in this direction. But one of the books that's really convinced me of the value of organ meats, and I haven't explored beyond heart and liver, Heart is also an extremely mild and very delicate flavored meat and very tender. It's something that I've mixed into some of my pate. And it's also extremely high in CoQ10. So people with migraines also have issues with heart palpitations and low levels of CoQ10. So this approach is kind of like a like cures like approach, you know, kind of homeopathic in that sense that, like, if you have issues with heart, you can eat some heart. If you have issues with your liver, you could eat some liver, and that may support, you know, both of those organs. I have not gotten to the point of eating intestines. I'm not sure if I ever will, but that's something that many, many cultures did, and that would seem to be, in terms of a like cures like approach, probably be good for digestive issues, right? So this book, Deep Nutrition, has really convinced me of the value. Excuse me, just a minute, let me turn off my phone. Excuse me. I'm too lazy to edit this out, so pardon the interruption. So this book, Deep Nutrition by Shanahan, it has so many amazing, like, anthropological and historical anecdotes about, you know, indigenous native peoples and cultures and how they ate and how they incorporated organ meats into their diet. And I wanted to read this one because I thought this was particularly interesting, because I'm going to be talking about vitamin C here too, and how important vitamin C is for building the ceruloplasm, which is this protein that makes copper bioavailable. It also makes iron bioavailable, which is relevant for those who are low in energy and think they have anemia. So here it is. This is, the following excerpt offers one example of what the locals living in Yukon Territory in Canada knew about scurvy, a disease of vitamin C deficiency, which at the time in 1930 still killed European explorers to the region. When I asked an old Indian why he did not tell the white man how to prevent scurvy, his reply was that the white man knew too much to ask the Indian anything. I then asked him if he would tell me. He said he would if the chief said he might. He returned in an hour, saying that the chief said he could tell me because I was a friend of the Indians. He then described how when the Indian kills a moose, he opens it up, and at the back of the moose, just above the kidney, there are what he described as two small balls in the fat. These are the adrenal glands. These, he said, the Indian would take and cut up into as many pieces as there were little and big Indians in the family, and each would eat his piece. So, you know, the adrenal glands, our kidney adrenals really need vitamin C to function properly, but our body, unlike other animals, doesn't actually manufacture and synthesize vitamin C. And they hypothesized that this is because in our ancestral diet, we actually had sufficient vitamin C, not from fruits necessarily, but from things like adrenal glands and maybe other sources that I have yet to discover. But there was sufficient vitamin C in the diet that at a certain point we evolved to just stop manufacturing it in our body. So like other animals, like goats and other animals, actually manufacture vitamin C in their body. But now we're at a point where we've evolved not to manufacture it, but we don't eat it very much, and we really, really need it. So I thought that was kind of an interesting anecdote. Our adrenal glands and kidneys especially need vitamin C. So what I've been doing is I've been taking acerola powder, which is a bioavailable food-based form of vitamin C, and that's necessary for the body to produce ceruloplasm. So again, ceruloplasm is this protein that the liver creates that then makes zinc, or rather copper, bioavailable. And we need that in order to create the enzyme to break histamine down and do a million other things with it as well. So vitamin C and vitamin A are the two ways that you can boost that. So I've been taking cod liver oil or eating liver a few times a week. Well, I take the cod liver oil every day except on days when I eat liver. And then I'm taking the acerola powder, and it's interesting that acerola also contains copper. And it's also really relevant. This is something that Morley Robbins pointed out. So Morley Robbins is a health coach. He used to be a hospital administrator, and he is the creator of the root cause protocol that I've been looking into recently, which he is just amazing. I'm really so grateful for all of his discoveries. But one really interesting thing he pointed out is that ascorbic acid, or any form of like citrate or a synthetic form of vitamin C, will actually break that ceruloplasm bond. It will break the bond between the copper and the ceruloplasm, adding to the load of free copper, which is toxic to the body. It also free copper contributes to the breakdown of connective tissue. It contributes to leaky gut, and copper and zinc are both really needed for connective tissue integrity. So aside from the way that it's essential, copper is essential for the breakdown of histamine, which is really, really relevant and important for those of us with migraine. The connective tissue point is really very relevant to us as well. Let me tell you my hypothesis. So my belief is that, there's this whole question about blood vessel dilation to the head, and it's very controversial. Some people are pointing out that the dilation of the blood vessels to the head is not actually the root cause of migraine. My belief is that it's not actually blood vessel dilation per se, but it's just that I think that the connective tissue of people with migraines is poor. There's not a lot of integrity to it, partially because of these mineral deficiencies like zinc and copper that we need to build connective tissue, and that the blood vessels are just simply lax. So they're often interpreted as being dilated, when in fact they're just lax. I mean, not in fact, because I haven't proven this fact. This is just my hypothesis. So I believe that one reason why we get migraines, this is just one of many reasons. I'm going to talk about a few of the other reasons that are so compelling and not widely known in a minute. But, your body modulates, it needs to be able to expand and contract those blood vessels in order to regulate the flow of blood to the head and the flow of oxygen to the head appropriately in response to varying conditions that you're in. So sometimes it probably needs to contract, sometimes it probably needs to dilate, but if the connective tissue integrity there on the epithelium is poor, it may not be able to respond appropriately. So I believe that may be playing a bigger role in the migraine pathology, and maybe it's being perceived as blood vessel dilation just because they're lax, just because that connective tissue is lax. Another really interesting cause of migraine headaches that I've recently discovered is herpes virus infection. And it's so cool because I came across this information through a deep inquiry into why it is that cayenne pepper is such a horrible trigger for me. So when I'm on my Simplywell protocol, I can eat chocolate, I can have yogurt, I can eat cheese, I can eat so many things that used to be major triggers for me. But I can't eat cayenne, and it was bugging me. I'm like, what is it about cayenne? Because, just the other day I had some takeout food that had some chopped jalapeno peppers on top, and I removed the jalapeno peppers, but this capsaicin, which is that spicy compound in the pepper, had rubbed off on the food, and I could still taste a little bit of heat in the food, but it wasn't very much, and I love the flavor of hot, spicy food, so I was enjoying it, but I had brain fog the whole rest of the evening. And I know that if I hadn't been on my protocol, I would have gotten a bad migraine. So I know there's a key and there's a clue with this capsaicin that's going to unravel for me some kind of mystery behind migraine pathology and what causes migraine. And where did I even get the hint to look into herpes virus infection? I was just thinking about how many of my clients have herpes. And so big deal, most of us have herpes, most of us have been exposed to some form of herpes, whether it's mono or Epstein-Barr virus. I myself was tested and shown to not have any active infection of Epstein-Barr or mono, although I've been exposed to both of those. Of course, most of us have had chicken pox, or there's shingles, there's genital herpes, there's herpes simplex. So there's a lot of strains of herpes, and I've just noticed that so many of my clients have herpes, like active infections that they have to manage, and infections which they see as being separate from their migraines. Well, it's interesting that herpes actually lives dormantly in nerves, and specifically in the trigeminal and vagus nerve. So you could be living without an active outbreak or herpes infection and still have a herpes infection in your trigeminal and vagus nerve. And they've demonstrated this in the literature. They've demonstrated and shown that people with migraines do have a much higher percentage of herpes than other people do. And also they've demonstrated that people with migraine, or actually it was just a single case report where they were able to get a woman's persistent chronic migraines under control using anti-herpes medication. So I was reading about all this and was like, well, clearly there's, a connection and a correlation between herpes infection and migraine. Wonder what the correlation is between capsaicin, the spicy component of the chili peppers, and herpes. And as it turns out, capsaicin has been shown to reactivate latent herpes. So that's really big. That's major. That's really interesting. I mean, and as it turns out, there's these receptors on the cell. They're the vilanoid TVRP1 receptors that help your body modulate sensations of heat. So hence, the capsaicin pepper uses this receptor site, and that's how it translates the heat sensation to the body. But herpes also uses the TVRP1 and I think CGRP. So CGRP is this calcitonin gene-related peptide, which is a neuropeptide that has been implicated in blood vessel dilation. And the new anti-migraine drugs that are coming out are CGRP receptor antagonists. So they're trying to antagonize the release of CGRP to prevent that blood vessel dilation. So as it turns out, capsaicin increases CGRP. Probably herpes increases CGRP too. There's a lot of questions I can ask in this further research. I just wanted to give you a brief synopsis of that because I don't know how long it's going to take me before I actually write up my blog post on that. But the point is that, so in addition to helping with connective tissue integrity, hormonal balance, and enzymatic functions like the breakdown of histamine, zinc and copper are essential for the control of viruses. So if you go through a stage in your life or an event like I did, like a C-section operation in which the event is so stressful that you just, your mineral status is depleted, and perhaps you went into the event with low mineral status because you didn't have enough vitamin A or enough vitamin C to actually bind the minerals that were in your bloodstream to create these enzymes, then you could end up in a situation, and apparently many of us have, where a herpes virus infection that was not really that problematic and was very latent all of a sudden gets a stronghold on your system, and you are from that point on so compromised, especially if you've had antibiotics and your digestion is then compromised, your ability to actually absorb these minerals, even if you're getting the right food for them. It's just a cascade from there on out. And then you look at that years and years and years of being compromised in that way, not being able to assimilate your nutrients, and getting sicker and sicker, which is a stress on your body, and your body needs more of these nutrients to counterbalance that stress, but they're simply not there. That's a recipe for disaster, and it's also a prime condition for a virus to get a real stronghold in your system. So I'm so excited because this explains so much. It just explains so much. And what's even more exciting is there's something we can do about it. And again, it's folk medicine solution, which is getting proper ratios of bioavailable copper and zinc in the form of liver, and eating acerola, and getting vitamin A, which is also high in liver. So vitamin A being different than beta carotene. So one reason I think the protocol is actually really beneficial, aside from the fact that it's alkalizing, which is great because viruses, they respond to different acid or alkaline conditions. So it could be that all the juicing in the protocol is actually helping to reduce that herpes virus infection because it's an approach that alkalizes the body. But so there's a lot of beta carotene in the carrots, which is sort of the plant-based version of vitamin A. But it's interesting to note that the beta carotene requires zinc in order for the body to convert it into retinol or vitamin A. So in theory, you could blast your system with tons of beta carotene and your body would be able to convert that into vitamin A, and you wouldn't need to get it from like liver, but that would require zinc. So if you're a vegetarian, maybe you would be getting enough zinc from things like cheese. There's a lot of zinc in red meat and oysters, which vegetarians wouldn't be eating. But for the vegans, that's, it appears, we know that plant foods have a lot less zinc than animal foods. But there are foods like sesame seeds and pumpkin seeds that have a lot of zinc in them, and they're bound to phytic acid. So this whole issue of phytic acid is interesting because we're kind of told that it's this bad thing that's like an anti-nutrient that, binds all these other important vitamins and minerals in your body. I'm not really convinced about that. There seems to be some evidence that phytic acid is actually really beneficial and healthy for you. But it does appear that it is true that while eating foods high in phytic acid probably doesn't actually steal and take away other nutrients that are in your digestive tract, it probably does make the nutrients that are in that food you're eating less bioavailable. And maybe there's other evidence and research showing otherwise. I looked at a few of Dr. Greger's videos. He's a big proponent of vegan eating, and so there is some compelling evidence there that, I guess what I'm saying is I certainly hope that for those who are relying on pumpkin seeds and other seeds for their zinc, if they are vegan, that's not happening, but it may be. And regardless of whether that's a big issue or not, if you're in a depleted state, I feel like it's clear that you know, the amounts of copper and zinc that are available in liver are just so much more than something like pumpkin seeds, and it is hard to eat like a cup of pumpkin seeds a day, you know, to get this stuff. So yeah, my view is that it would be probably pretty hard to heal as a vegan and heal from a deficiency condition. But man, I just really am so on board with you know, the point of view that our animals are just really mistreated. And how are you going to get healthy if you're relying on the flesh and organs of animals who are sick? So the sourcing issue is a big one. It's not straightforward or obvious or easy to get organs from healthy animals that were happy and well treated. So I don't know this cow, how good its life was. It's 100% grass fed. Was it out in the fields eating the grass, or was it like in a feedlot being fed hay crowded in with a bunch of other animals? I don't know. If it was living a stressful, horrible life, you know, there could be stress hormones in the meat that you're eating, and I can totally see the appeal of just like bypassing all that together, especially if you look at the environmental impacts of animals. But for me right now, I just feel that what liver offers as a package deal, especially the vitamin A in there, for the purposes of building ceruloplasm, is just, it's a no-brainer to eat liver. So I'm going to be sharing with you down below my pate recipe, and, you know, I'm part French, so that just sort of getting back in touch with my ancestral roots. The French people really know how to use liver. And I guess I would just say that for those of you who have an aversion to eating liver, I mean, your healing path is your healing path, but I just think it's interesting the lengths that people will go to get rid of their migraines, and yet then when it comes to eating something like liver, they just can't go there. You know, it's like some people are willing to be injected with like a genetically engineered CGRP drug that's going to cost thousands of dollars and would rather do that than eat some liver, you know. So everyone has their own path and approach, but for me, this approach makes the most sense. And I've been noticing my liver has been hurting a lot less. For those of you who don't know, I've had a major inflammation and pain in my liver since the C-section, which was 5 years ago. And that's really concerning after 5 years of having your major organs hurting. So I'm super psyched about this. And I encourage anyone to check out Morley Robbins' root cause protocol, which I'm studying right now. There's a lot of other components to that protocol, but he's brilliant. And, you know, I'm just here to promote and advocate for any information that I come across that can help us heal migraines. It doesn't need to be my protocol. I'm just going to be a spokesperson for the simple food-based folk medicine remedies that exist, whether that's mine or someone else's. And I just know that we can all, you know, heal. Our bodies know how to heal when given the right support. So this has been a long video. I hope you've enjoyed it. And check out the pate recipe down below. I'm eating pate about 3 times a week, or liver 3 times a week, a few ounces of it, and then taking the cod liver oil and the acerola powder. All right, I think that's everything. I should probably stop. I took so many notes, things I wanted to talk about. Yeah, I think I got it. Yep. All right. Take care. Have a great day. Bye.